folks, and welcome back to the Upland Forum. Yes, it's been a hot minute since we've been on the air, but we are back, and we want to make sure that we introduce the people, businesses, and organizations that make Upland such an incredible place to call home. One of my favorite parts of this show is uncovering the hidden gems that make our community unique. So today's guest has built more than a business; she's built a tradition that brings families together around the dinner table. So joining us today is a very special guest. I'm going to bring her on board right now. This is Adrianna Siqueiros, owner of Lolly's Tamales. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, preserving culture, and what it takes to turn a homemade recipe into a beloved local business. So, folks, let's welcome Adrianna to the Upland Forum. Welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good morning. Doing good. Doing good.
All
Thank you
right.
for
So,
having me.
no, and it's great because I want to give folks to a chance to get to know you, and because we're always on a limited time and we always run out of time, so I want to make sure I get as many questions as possible in there. So, tell
Okay.
us a little bit about yourself and how Lolly's Tamales first began.
Um, First started the business. I mean, my grandma used to sell tamales out of her house. And, as kids, we were always kind of forced to, get in there and help. So it's something that I've done my whole life. Never really thought about making a business of it. I was with the same company for 18 years and one day just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather be selling tamales on the street than be here longer. And I left my job with no actual business plan, not really sure what we wanted to do, which way we wanted to go with it. But people love tamales, and that's what we started out as. And as we've done that, our menu has built more and more. We bought the trailer. My daughters and I, we run the business. And, one of my cousins, and it's been a family, business since then. And just kind of, the menu's grown, and it's turned out really well so far.
So, the $1 million question I have for you that I should have asked you first is, who was Lolly, or who is Lolly, and how did the business get its name?
Lolly's been a nickname of mine since I was a kid. I know that it was my grandpa who first started calling me Lolly. I don't know why. We have a bunch of weird nicknames in our family, and Lolly was one of them, and it just stuck. So,
Okay, cool. And what inspired you to continue this family tradition?
I feel like it's kind of a dying tradition, because it's so time consuming and it's so involved. A lot of people just don't make them anymore. And that's one thing that, our family's always done. We have a big family, my aunts owned a restaurant when I was younger, and we'd always get together and make them, and they sold them year round, not just at Christmas. I know traditionally a lot of people only, have them during the holidays, but you know, we love to eat, we love to get together, we love to cook. So,
Yeah, and I'm glad you're keeping that tradition because it also seems just because life gets crazy, people to tend just to, and let's be honest, people tend to get a little bit lazy and don't want to cook and then just grab something out of the freezer or something that's already pre-made and go for it, but they lose, like what you
yeah.
said, that tradition, the authenticity. And so what I want to ask you is what makes Lolly's Tamales different from any other tamale business?
Oh, the love. They're made with love.
That's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
So
And
so tell me.
everything's homemade. None of the masa or anything is, prepared or anything. We do all that ourselves. So every, thing that we put into there, everything's all homemade. Doing it by hand, no machines. It's just it's just us here in the kitchen putting it all together. And I do think, it does make a difference that everything is prepared, you know, homemade. So,
So, I think a lot of folks listening don't realize how much business owners go through getting things off the ground, starting with, a great vision or this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And how important has family been in growing this business?
it's been everything. Like I said, the business is run by, me and my daughters and my cousin. And just, I mean, they've seen me go through it from, tears to smiles and everything in between. It's, I really had to rely on them and calling my aunts, hey, this is what I'm working with. I'm working on this catering job and kind of going back to those things, that they started and kind of taking it, running with it and making it my own.
Okay, so I want you to take a moment and I want you to think back, okay, and I'm going to ask you what have been some of your biggest challenges you faced as a small business owner and getting this started.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, the startup, looking for, good locations, good events, doing those things, and just kind of getting out there and, letting people know about the business and stuff. I've, you know, starting up, like I said, we didn't really have any plan on where we wanted to take the business. I just knew it was something I wanted to do. So it's kind of grown and it's changed a little bit. And, we're finding what works for us, what we like, what we don't like. And, all of those things have been challenges. Getting, my girls involved with this. And, I think they enjoy it more now than they did in the beginning. They were kind of like, oh, first they couldn't believe that I even left my job to start the business.
Mhm.
So, that those things have been a challenge. Basically, looking for the right spots, the right, because we do different pop-ups. And, you know, actually the biggest challenge was learning how to pull that trailer.
I can believe that. I
That
would
was
attempt
that
it for
was
sure.
let me go back. That was actually the biggest challenge because it was much bigger than I anticipated. Can't see anything behind you. And gosh, when I first got the trailer, I wouldn't even get on the freeway. I was just like I mapped out the streets everywhere I needed to go. I was terrified. But now I got it and I can, back that trailer into anywhere. So
That's all. You have to teach me lessons because I don't know how to back a trailer if my life depended on it for sure.
oh, I've gotten really good at it now.
That's awesome. So let me ask you, are there any family recipes or traditions that are still being used today? And have you started your own traditions with your business?
Yes. All of the tamales, barbacoa, all of those things on the menu, they're all my grandmother's recipes. And if you see on the back of the trailer, I have a picture of my grandmother there. Unfortunately, she passed prior to me getting the trailer, so she never did get to see it. So we have her picture there on the back of the trailer. And if you see on the trailer, it says Tamales made the Bojorquez way. That's my grandmother's name, you know.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, everything was all what we learned from her. Each one of our family members, all of my aunts, everybody there, everybody makes tamales. Everybody's carried on these recipes. And even within all of us, the recipe, they're slightly different, with each one of us. But, same core foundation, same ingredients, same, way each one of us have put our own different little spin on it. But yeah, everything goes back to my grandmother and all her recipes.
So I asked you about your biggest challenge. I also want to ask you what has been the most rewarding moment since you opened up Lolly's Tamales?
Being able to share this with my daughters, having them work with me, and you know what I mean. It's been great. I do love that. I love that, and that we're doing it together, figuring it
Awesome.
out together. So, it's been really nice.
So some of the community questions that come up is like, for example, why is it so important to support local family-owned businesses? Why do you think that's so important?
Well, I mean, for us, we always try to work with other local small businesses because I think it is important. It helps the community grow, and we're very family focused, people, and so I like to work with and do business with, similar family focused people. I do think it's important. Like I said, it helps the community grow, brings families together, you know, keeps everything in a pretty close, tight knit. So
Awesome. And you've been part of the chamber. You've been here locally. You got to know some of the local folks here in the city. How would you say that the Upland community has embraced your business?
really well. I've met some really good people there. I enjoy it. I've enjoyed everybody that we've met and that we've worked with, and it's a great community. I'm really, really am happy to have been part of the chamber, joined that, and met all the people that we have.
So now I want you to put on your entrepreneur hat, right? This is you as a business owner. So what advice would you give someone who's dreaming of turning a family recipe into like this massive business or this massive legacy to honor their in your case your grandmother, you're honoring her with some of that as well too. So what would you say to somebody that wants to start something like that?
Do it. Do it. Absolutely do it. Um, Start small. Don't try to, you can't be everything for everyone. That's one thing that we really had to learn, and keep your recipes, keep them traditional. People always come back to that. One of the, best compliments that we've received is, having your food really took me back to being at my grandma's house or being at my mom's house. And, it was nostalgic for them. And I think that's been one of our greatest compliments. For anybody starting out with something similar, stick to those recipes. Keep it traditional. People will come. And like I said, it brings that nostalgia for them.
Um, I'm going to ask you also, you're growing this, right? So what's at the point where you are right now, what's next for Lolly's Tamales?
Well, really like to move into a brick and mortar. I would love to have a restaurant space. We're looking into that now, seeing if it's something that's feasible for us. But I would love that. That's what I would like to do next.
Excellent. And folks, if you are just joining us too, make sure you're following Adrianna. There's the Instagram account for them, so you guys can look them up, follow her, and you can see all the great content that she puts out there. And man, you're talking about food right now, and you go onto her Instagram, you're gonna want to order food, man. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. You're gonna get stuck with that too, for sure. So I got what I like to call a fun lighting round, right? So I'm gonna ask you quick questions. You can't think about it. It's got to be like your first thing that comes up. So, what's your favorite tamale on the menu?
Oh, the green.
The
Green
green?
chili with chicken and cheese. Those are my favorite.
Okay. So next one is, and I think I know the answer to this because you just said it. It's red or green sauce.
Oh yeah, green. Oh, it
Green.
depends.
Okay.
It depends. If it's something like enchiladas or something, then I like the red. Tamales, I like the green.
Okay. Uh, Coffee or chata? Which one?
Ooh, coffee all day, every day.
All right. Next one is sweet tamale or savory tamale.
Ooh, savory, no sweet. Just not a fan.
Yeah. And then my last quick round question is Christmas tamales or tamales year round?
Year round.
Year round. Good answer. All right.
Mhm.
Good answer. All right. This has been a wonderful conversation. And I want to thank Adrianna today for joining us and sharing the incredible story behind Lolly's Tamales. This is exactly why we created the Upland Forum. Behind every local business is a family, a dream, and years of hard work that often go unnoticed. So the next time you're looking for an amazing meal or catering for your next event, remember to support one of Upland's hidden gems. In this case, is Lolly's Tamales. So every purchase helps keep local traditions alive and strengthens the community we all love. Adrianna, any last parting words?
Come by, give us a try. If you're looking for a caterer, we got you. We can customize menus. And like I said, everything's homemade. You will not be disappointed.
All right, folks, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Upland Forum. Remember, if you know a hidden gem here in Upland that we need to talk about or feature, please let me know. Send me a message. I am Carlos Garcia, and I'll see you guys next time as we continue discovering people, places, and stories that make Upland truly, truly special.